Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we've got something that we haven't done on the Talking Giants podcast since 2019. We're evaluating the QB class. We're going to go to our top 5 QBs. We're going to hit, I'm not going to do I'm going to try and do an alphabetical order so I don't give away my top 5. So I think Corral 1, Howell, Pickett, Willis, where does Ridder? Pickett, Ridder,
R comes before
Willis.
W.
So I forgot Ridder's last name for a second. So I'm gonna do those, and we're gonna hit some D-line guys. You know, there's still a need for nose tackle. They could still use some depth at 3 and 5 technique too. So hitting on 5 of those guys, mostly, you know, like some hog molly, something that we honestly haven't looked at a lot the last 2 years either because of the Giants' like plethora of players at that defensive line group. So the 2 players we've neglected the most the last 3 years on this podcast we're hitting today.
Yeah, Bobby, I was telling the Patreon chat before the show, a little bit of a weird show, at least personally for myself, because this is really the first time that I'm even giving somewhat of a deep dive into QBs, and like you said with the interior D-line, hi, Bobby, 23 days when everybody's listening to this, 24 days when the Patreon is listening to this, until night 1 of the NFL draft. Corey Webster number of days, Rashad Jennings number of days. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing all right. It's fun to watch QBs. It kind of got those juices. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun looking at these QBs every year. I've ignored them the past 2 seasons. So we're gonna get into that in a couple minutes. Only thing I want to hit it because the Giants had their first day of organized activities. You know, essentially, you know, meet and greet workouts, some playbook stuff because they have a new head coach in Brian Dable, which I thought the social media team was pretty funny at saying, like, not an usual offseason for the Giants. It's like, well, we've had 4, you know, new head coaches in the last, you know, 7 seasons. So
you
it's
must
actually
be new here.
Yeah, you must be new, social media. You must be a new employee for the social media team because we're actually quite used to this. We know how these rules work better than anybody in the NFL. Again, I've been so deep in draft stuff that it was hard to really wrap around anything that I didn't see anything of note. The one thing that came out of it that it seems hasn't been confirmed to only Wes Steinberg and Giant Insider, so it hasn't really been confirmed. It doesn't seem that Kadarius Toney was there, and that is bothering. Like, it's, again, when you look at these Kadarius Toney incidents all in a vacuum, you know, by themselves individually, none of them are really that bad. But it's the first day under a new coaching staff. He's supposed to, you know, be an integral part of this team, especially on the offense, first-round pick last year. And just another check on the list of, like, annoying thing that Kadarius Toney does. And it seems like he didn't show up for this. And there's really, you know, there's no excuse. I'm sure Joe Judge and staff did a good job of kind of lying and saying, lying on guys and giving people excuses. But, you know, most likely, this is just another tick on the Kadarius Toney annoying thing meter.
Part of how I'm going to view the Giants season, and not just Kadarius Toney's season, is our guys playing together, practicing together, being together in the building as much as possible. Because we did not have that this past summer. Kyle Rudolph being hurt, Kenny Golladay being hurt, Saquon Barkley recovering from the torn ACL. So many different guys were hurt. Even Nate Solder, the starting right tackle, was not on the field. Matt Parrott had the back problem, but that didn't keep him out of camp basically at all. I think like part of the first week. But that's how I'm going to be judging partially how I view this Giants season. Is the practices are important. Like training camp, these offseason workouts, all this stuff is important. I hate the conversation of, it doesn't matter how they perform in practice, does it not matter, blah, blah, blah. There's a fine line to it. But yeah, guys getting together and working out together, talking with coaches, having meetings, that stuff matters, especially since if you compare the NFL now to a decade ago or 2 decades ago, where you had 2-a-days and you have multi-padded practices, everything is so limited now that any contact you can get with players is significant. And especially for Kadarius Toney, it's significant.
I don't think Toney's missing out on a ton by not being at this opening day thing. Again, they're getting the playbooks. They had some meetings and stuff, but mostly it's kind of like a meet and greet, weight room type of stuff. Like it's really nothing that's that important, but it's just
the little things. It's the little things that compile up together that make it something significant.
Well, and I hate to do it, but it's like with Odell. It was like little incident, little incident, little incident. It kept building up, and then it's like the ESPN. It's like, okay, that happened. Everything's worse. And I know they're not the same person. In fact, I think they're both very different personalities. But again, it's a trend, and you can't ignore it with Toney. Okay, you shouldn't be. This isn't anything to be outraged about. But again, you're putting blinders on if you're not a little worried about Toney long term buying in as a teammate.
After there being rumors of Kadarius Toney, like being moved on from last year, like those were rumors, nothing confirmed, but. After rumors of Kadarius Toney possibly being released by the Giants last year, you would think that he would want to make the concerted effort to kind of show up when he can. And he's 0 for 1.
All right. Well, let's get in. All right.
Well, there's one more. Brian Daboll wouldn't commit to saying if James Bradbury was there or not, which makes me think that he's not.
Good. Well, yeah, he's probably not. Good on him for not, throwing guys, like basically, covering. Like, hey, I'm not going to say who's not here. We just had a bunch of guys come. So I think someone said they counted like a good amount of them, but it just seems like Toney wasn't there. Daniel Jones was lifting. Daniel Jones is going to be clear. Like the Daniel Jones conspiracy theories of maybe not being ready can go away. Like they're obviously always going to give as little information as possible, but Daniel Jones is going to be ready to play football.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, you ready to get into these QBs?
Yeah. Let's do it.
First,
I have a question first.
Well, before we get in, I have something. Is it about Daniel Jones and a comparison?
No, it's about why the Giants aren't going to be taking a QB.
Go for it.
And I have 3 reasons. Number 1, I don't think it makes sense for Joe Schoen to put his job on the line right now with drafting a quarterback. He may not have the right people in here. Like, I don't know if I would want Chris Pettit's evaluations on this year's quarterback class when I don't know if Joe Schoen wants to work with Chris Pettit. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Tyrod Taylor's 2023 contract. And number 3, Dan Duggan basically confirming that Davis Webb is going to be quarterback 3 this year. And if the Giants draft a QB, that would mean they trade Daniel Jones. And I don't see that happening.
Right. Yeah, I don't see it happening either. The only way I could see it happening is if their QB1 fell to the second round. But we'll get into it into a second. Again, we don't think the Giants are going to draft a QB, but I wanted to do our due diligence this year because the last 2 years we knew we weren't taking a QB. It would suck to not do due diligence and the Giants take a QB. So it's kind of, we're doing this as a might as well exercise. This episode is brought to you by Chris Roundy. Round and round and round he grows. This next person's name is New York Giants Therapy Group, which I think would be a good nickname for our Patreon. And then Robert Edgerton Jr. He likes to edge. He subscribed to Patreon after the Edge preview.
Patreon.com/TalkinGiants. This year, it's not going to be a therapy group. I mean, it depends how you define therapy. If you need therapy for experiencing too much joy, it's not going to be a therapy group because we experienced depression this year. So patreon.com/TalkinGiants. You get to hang out with us while we record the shows live. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers, magnets in the mail, and then also twice a month, you have an opportunity to win something from our store. Patreon.com/TalkinGiants. I will not be shocked if more people subscribe. I will be shocked if the Giants draft a quarterback. Whereas a couple weeks ago, I wasn't going to be that shocked. But then since basically Dan Duggan came on our show and said that thing about Davis Webb, my preparation for QBs really slowed down.
Well, and this is a bad quarterback class. Like, let's be upfront about it. There's one guy who I view as like a first round quarterback. There's one guy, and if you put Daniel Jones out of Duke into this QB class, he would be QB1. He would. I dove deep into Daniel Jones film. Obviously more so than these guys because, the Giants drafted him. But Daniel Jones, to me, would be the clear QB1. You can make let me just say, Malik Willis is my QB1. This class. You can make an argument for Malik Willis because he has some really good traits and the things that he needs to get better at. He definitely can get better at. But, there could be an argument with Malik Willis, but Daniel Jones would be QB1 of this group. Like, I say that very confidently.
Yeah, big predictor of quarterback success from the collegiate game is CPOE, completion percentage over expected. Are you completing more passes than what you're quote-unquote expected to do based off the next-gen data? Unfortunately, there isn't at least public information of CPOE from collegiate quarterbacks, but there are people on Twitter that have access to that data. And what they did is for the top 5 quarterbacks taken in each draft class since 2019, they've gone through the CPOE of those 5 quarterbacks. 2019, it was a plus 2.9. This year, it's a plus 1.3. And then 2020 and 2021 were above plus 4. So that basically means top 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft class, they're not very accurate. And if you compare them, especially to 2021 and 2020, those top 5 QBs run another stratosphere of accuracy, and that's really a good way to kind of measure future success. So, yeah, not the best QB class this year, Bobby.
But let's get into the one guy who I do like a good amount, and that's Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty, who is my quarterback one. I kind of feel nerdy saying like QB1, but anyways, Malik Willis, QB1, 6 foot, 219 pounds, 9.5 inch hands. Obviously transferred out of Auburn and was with Liberty the last 2 years. Just some raw stats from this past season: 60.1 completion percentage, or 61.1, 8.4 yards per attempt, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The year before, 64.2 completion percentage, 8.5 yards per attempt, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's going to need to learn everything from a pro offense. I think there's a rush to put a lot of QBs on the field, and for the most part, that's the right thing to do, is put QBs on the field week 1. Malik Willis is going to need to, because he needs to learn a pro offense from setting protections, from everything. Kind of the way that Mike Kafka did with Patrick Mahomes. But there's so much there to work with. His arm strength, it isn't Mahomes Allen level, but it's great. Like, he has the only great arm in this class. I mean, he lasers the ball in when he throws, and it's on a rope. He's not really a touch passer, but he can put it on when needed. And his deep accuracy, I think overall, is pretty damn good, especially when he's got time to set his feet. Like, he has plenty of dime throws down the field, like beautiful, beautiful throws, more than anybody in this class. Now, his intermediate, the short accuracy can be off, but I do think it's rooted in footwork, which is something that is very fixable if someone puts the work in. So accuracy can be an issue at times. Needs to be more precision on like tight window, like back shoulder type throws. The ones that wow everybody are the off-platform throws, and those are the things that get everybody excited in draft season, and he does them as good as anyone. I mean, they are as good as they get. And then obviously, so I'm going arm strength to, running. The great improviser in the pocket and great athlete overall, like an amazing athlete. He is a dynamic runner, an A+ running ability. That being said, he does take too many hits. Like I referenced before, his footwork is a mess, but it being such a mess gives you hope to have real, like, substantial growth the way a guy like Josh Allen did. I think he's very aggressive, which I love, on sideline throws, hole shots on the sideline. As far as running through a pro offense, I think he's too hesitant to hit the number 2 and number 3 guy in high to low progressions. And he'll take off running too early, which that's something that's going to need to be beat into him. It's like, hey, man, you got to kind of sit in these and throw these number 2 and number 3, like trust it. Again, like he just, versus zone, he just struggles to pull the trigger, and he waits too long for guys to come open. Also, his arm is so good that I think he needs to trust his arm better when working center field. Like, if you've got someone who can split those center field safeties when the center field is open, or when it's close, like, he has the arm to beat deep coverage.
I can't tell you how many times Malik Willis would hit stuff on the sideline, like tight window throws, put stuff on a rope going to the sideline, but then guys are running posts down the middle of the field, and you would think something in the middle of the field is a little bit easier than tight window sideline throws. And he just wouldn't make, there's guys that are open for him to hit in the post and just hit him on the run. You got the arm strength to do it, to put that ball there, and he just didn't do it. And it wind up in, taking sacks, or he wind up trying to improvise it and play hero ball. Dude, if there's an explosive play that's there in the middle of the field, take it. And he is one of those guys. He is one of those quarterbacks where rarely, probably less than any other top QB in this draft class, just never threw the ball in the middle of the field, whether it was intermediate or whether it was deep. Everything is just such center around the sidelines. And I've never seen that ever before. Never.
It has to do with anticipation. He needs to have more anticipation. Like, he like those sideline shots, it's, 1, 2, 3 step drop, bam, hit it. Those post routes are long developing plays, and you kind of have to, at a point, you have to bet, okay, that safety is, he's over the top right now, but he's not in good enough position to stop this deep post. So it's just more about having better anticipation and trusting his arm on those throws, because he has all the ability, like, he makes amazing throws. And when he does, like, there was one game where he missed the deep post, and then they came back to it, and he just hit a beautiful beautiful dime. Again, he's good, as running, like far as running, he's good at controlling the center field player, for his sideline throws, where he can get one-on-one coverage. As far as like in the pocket, he does escape too quick, but he is dynamic and makes plays out of it. But that being said, his offensive line play was horrible. Like, it was horrible at Liberty, but he needs to be able to stand in the pocket and square his feet, like square up and throw that ball. And he creates sacks. Like, he'll kill drives with sacks that are trying to make a play. Yeah. The Syracuse game, I think at the end of that game, like he, lost the game on a sack, fumbled where she shouldn't have taken. So he will kill those plays, and so he has those. But at the end of the day, man, this is the only quarterback where if they took him at 7, and I don't want them to, but I would be excited about it. I would. I would trust them to work and develop this guy. Because you see, like, the areas of improvement are the things that I think Brian Dable would be good improving him in. And the fact that the Giants, if they did draft him, they would have to trade Daniel Jones for whatever they could get, whether, even for the 7th round, because you have Tyrod Taylor on the team. But you have a guy like Tyrod Taylor who can help develop, and you can put out there and play without having to force Malik Willis on the field. And then again, you have your head coach and offensive coordinator are both guys who work with raw, great talent QBs and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who Patrick Mahomes sat his whole first year, and Josh Allen was god awful his first year.
Malik Willis is a walking explosive play. He's a 3rd and short weapon. That's something that I feel like you didn't touch on. 3rd and short, you don't know whether he is going to throw the ball or he can run the ball. He's also a red zone weapon. I feel like the same way that the Bills use Josh Allen in that regard, whether it is 3rd and short or inside the red zone, Malik Willis is a weapon. And this is from day one, not even just, let's let this guy develop. 3rd and short, red zone. He is an automatic weapon from day one. And if he can fix up the things that he needs to fix up in his game, then boom, it makes him even more dynamic. Things that can translate to the pro level right away. Escapability, arm talent, and running ability, and then the off-platform throws. Those are the things that can translate to the pro level, and I feel like those are the things that are hardest sometimes for quarterbacks to actually get, and that's like, it's God-given. It's God-given. I mean, the off-platforms, the arm strength, the arm talent, and the escapability. I mean, feeling and sensing that's been something that Daniel Jones has been working on for years. We interviewed Daniel Jones's trainer from like after his rookie year, and he was talking about Daniel Jones's pocket presence, and it's taken him years to really work on that. If you have that sense of when to get out of the pocket, sure, Malik Willis does it a little too quick, but it's something that not a lot of quarterbacks can do, and that's why these quarterbacks are getting a shit ton of guaranteed money. And teams like the Vikings and the Giants, if you're middling in that QB hell, it's really, really bad. So those are things that can translate right away to the pro level.
Yeah, and so like essentially big arm, amazing athlete, and aggressive. Those are like the 3 things you want to work with a guy. Like his accuracy issues are rooted in things that can be fixed in footwork. So I think he's clearly quarterback 1 for me. Kenny Pickett probably would make more of an impact day 1, but he's the only guy I'd be excited for, because I think he can be a great player in this league if he's brought up with the right coaching. Yeah. But that does matter. I think it matters with 9 QBs out of 10. It really does matter where you end up, and where Malik Willis ends up, I think, is going to matter a lot. To be in a place that helps him learn and grow, but also learn and grow the right way. Not learning and growing under someone who's going to try and fix all the bad things and not keep all the aggressiveness in them. Similar to the way Garrett did with DJ. So I think that all matters with him. But I will say, the Giants have a pretty nice situation for that. If you believe in Dable and Kafka, they're going to improve the offensive line this offseason, and they've got a decent little, group of weapons, even though none of them could really stay on the field much. But again, you have time to build those things. So I do think the Giants would be a good landing spot for him, but at 5 and 7, it's just too early for me.
Yeah, too early, and the Giants, if their quarterback situation was different, then I would be more open to it. But also, I'm in a different spot with Malik Willis right now than I was compared to the day after the Senior Bowl, where I actually did sit down. I watched him, watch that all 22, and just was not in love with him as I thought that I would be. because of the hesitations that I have about the accuracy, the consistency. Can he develop into a player that can run that pro style offense? So that's where I'm at.
Well, and at Mobile matters. The Senior Bowl when we were down there, that does matter because he was in a situation where the playing level is equal. You're going to be in some pro style you're running pro style offense, and he looked like the clear quarterback one out there. Like he had some good timing throws in the intermediate game. It wasn't just him, and in the practices he wasn't using his legs at all. In the game, it was like, read, run. The game wasn't, but you saw his athleticism in the game, but no one's ever questioned that. So that does matter too. Like that does play into it. It's like, okay, he went down there and was clearly the best quarterback down there.
Absolutely.
All right. Do we want to hit the next cat on this list?
Yeah. So you said you initially said you were going to go alphabetical order, but then you just lied.
No, I said I wanted to announce the 5 QBs.
Oh, announce the 5 QBs. So all right,
I didn't give up my QB 1 through 5.
Who's your second guy?
All right. It's not fun, but it is Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pitt. 6'3", 217 pounds, 8.5-inch hands. Ran a 4.73 40. Small hands, very small hands. And I think we'll talk about arm talent, ability to move, and then just run, playing the game wise in order with that. Stat wise, his stats were very mediocre at best. The first 3, in 2018 to 20 at Pitt, he had the 3 from 18 to 20, 12 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 9 interceptions, 9 interceptions. Very safe with the ball. Completion percentage, 61, 58. This past season, completed 67% of his passes, had a huge jump in yards per attempt, 8.7, 42 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He played in a very pro-friendly system, and he's the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft to me. His arm talent, to me, Justin, is overall adequate for the NFL. I think he's got nice deep ball accuracy as a touch thrower. In the intermediate drive throws, the ball can die out on him or be high at times because he's really trying to put that extra, muscle into them. But he's got good accuracy all over the field and can make those precision placement throws. He actually can throws really well accurately on the move too, and he does use his legs a good amount. That being said, with the small hands, we got to see him up close and personal in the rain in Mobile, and it really did struggle. And I do think that's more than just, a March talking point about the hand size. Like, the hand size is an issue, Justin.
Yeah, when it gets down to it, if you're playing a playoff game in Lambeau in December, and you can't grip a football. Now, he did play in Pittsburgh, so that's also the thing, too. It's like, all right, well, do you want to go off of the Senior Bowl, or do you want to go off of the fact that he played in Pittsburgh and he had a lot of cold weather games there too? Obviously, I didn't look up the weather for each of the games that he did play, but that's ultimately part of it too. Kenny Pickett has pretty good adjusting completion percentage. That's the closest stat that I could find to the CPOE completion percentage over expected. The adjusted completion percentage was 78.8%, which is 10th best in the nation this year out of all quarterbacks. And something to note, too, that Pitt's wide receivers had a little bit of a drop problem, too. I think they were like top 20 or maybe top 25 in drop rate this year. But also, you watch sometimes Kenny Pickett can contribute to contested catches and some possible drops, because if he's sitting in the pocket and he's waiting, he had the second highest time to throw in the nation this year among all quarterbacks. So he's sitting in the pocket. Sitting in the pocket, he's waiting for things to develop. Sometimes you're waiting for things to develop too much. Your wide receivers are having contested catches, and maybe some of those things are counted as drops. So I understand he has that escapability at times, but he's not Malik Willis. Like, Malik Willis having a top 10 time to throw, understandable. Kenny Pickett, kind of curious to me. So I'm interested to see how that translates to the NFL, where Kenny Pickett should not be a quarterback that's holding onto the ball for longer than 3 seconds in the NFL. He should definitely be a little bit more of a quicker release quarterback.
And I think that's when he is at his best, is in that three-step draw quick game, reading coverages. Again, like you said, he's not an A athlete, but he can move well and improvise. His footwork is very solid, whether it's in the pocket or outside of the pocket. Here's my biggest gripe with Kenny Pickett. He plays way too safe for me. Way too safe. Like, he does a good job, post-snap reading what's happening. Like, he lets the safeties dictate where he's going to go with the ball, and he knows how to manipulate them well, and he can process post-snap coverage movement pretty well. but he's just too safe with the ball in the high to low reads. There was a lot of chunk throws in the middle, and he would get to the check down. Again, really struggled to throw and anticipate like those deep to intermediate routes for his zone. Just there were so many times where pull the trigger, Kenny, pull the trigger, Pickett, and he just didn't do it. He'll have a deep over breaking really nice, and he'll hit the check down. And I just think there's some. I don't think he's comfortable under pressure, and he had a lot of time to throw this past season. I just don't think he's comfortable under pressure, and I think part of that reads into it as of playing a very conservative game. His pocket manipulation, I think, would be overall good, but I think he leaves the pocket too early. There's times where he doesn't need to leave, and he does. It's just stand in there and throw the ball, and I really think he doesn't like being hit. There's times where with light pressure, he'll bail from the pocket, read, run.
There was one play where I think they were playing Virginia, where he gets hit on his ankles after he's running out. He's running out of the pocket, not running scrambling, but he's about to run out of the pocket, and a defensive lineman kind of dives at his ankles a little bit, but it's as he's releasing the ball. It is not egregious, and he gets up and he screams at the ref. I've never seen a quarterback really freak out like that unless it's Tom Brady, but also that's Tom Brady. So that was kind of strange. So when you say he doesn't really like to get hit, that may be true.
And it just seems like he doesn't I saw one play where he literally ducked when he was about to get hit. He just doesn't want to hang in and deliver those throws versus pressure.
You got it.
And I think that leads to not being aggressive on those intermediate throws. Hey, if he's got a good pre-snap read, he's not afraid to throw the ball deep downfield, and he throws the ball deep downfield or intermediate. He throws it well, and he throws it accurately. When things are good, most accurately, but it's you got to be able to perform under pressure. Again, not constant, and again, he had a good situation in front of him. He had time to throw all the time, even when there was heavy blitzes. His O-line did a pretty decent job, at least in the games I watched. And it just seems like he just doesn't want to hang in. And to me, it reminds me of the way Alex Smith played football.
Yeah. All right, one more final point for me. I think his ceiling is kind of Kirk Cousins, maybe prime Andy Dalton, and maybe a little bit of Ryan Tannehill in there too, with the escapability, running a little bit. And hey, Arthur Smith, Atlanta Falcons. Go for it.
That's fair. Those are all fair comps to me. Again, I would say just Alex Smith just because of that conservative nature. But yeah, those are all fair comps.
I heard Tony Romo, but now hearing your
I don't that not at all.
Now hearing your hey, he doesn't want to get hit and stuff like that. Tony Romo was the master at breaking the sack, avoiding the sack, and also he got hit a fair amount too. So I don't like that Tony Romo comparison. Tony Romo deserves a little bit more respect than that. So
yeah, I have him as a B+ player, which would be top of the second round. But for the Giants who have Daniel Jones, I'm definitely not taking Kenny Pickett.
No.
I don't think I'd even take him in the second round.
No.
Just because of where the Giants situation is.
Yep.
If we were the Panthers and he was there in the second round, yeah. But for the Giants, I want it. All right. So do you got anything else on him?
No. Let's go through these final.
Well, how about baseball fans? How about that? We got our baseball people back in our life. It's time to step up to the plate. When is opening day? Thursday?
Thursday. I'll be in the office.
How about that? It's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. New customers can bet just $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take a swing at Stacks of Green with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Baseball Contest. New customers can play free for thousands of prizes with their first deposit. Pick a lineup of 2 pitchers and 8 batters while staying under the salary cap and rack up points for hits, runs, strikeouts, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY. Bet just $5 and win $200 in free bets if your team wins their game. That's promo code JOHNBOY at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. 21 plus restrictions apply and will be trademark used with permission. See show notes for details. See show notes for details. How about that? Almost read the directions for us. See next page for directions for disclaimer. How about that? Thank you, DraftKings. Very good. Very nice, DraftKings. All right, QB3. I had a hard time picking QB3, QB4, but at the end of the day, I'm going to bet on traits. And you know what? I feel more, the more that I think about it, it's I'm much more comfortable in this. But it's going to be Ole Miss. Ole Mississippi. The Giants have people forget that Eli Manning, who he won 2 Super Bowls, and he was also from Ole Miss. 6'2", 212 pounds, 9 5/8 inch hands. Stats this past year: completed 68%, 8.7 yards per attempt, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Although he had 11 touchdowns on the ground. Year before, completed 70% of his passes, 10 yards per attempt, 29 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. And again, he had something on the ground. But here's like the main thing. It's like, man, he plays in the heaviest of heavy RPO offenses with just very little NFL semblance with Lane Kiffin. Arm talent wise, it's pretty damn good, but it's not great to me. Like he's got really nice zip on intermediate and can make all the throws outside the numbers. I think he has some awesome tight window throws, and he's not afraid to pull the trigger. Like, he plays with a swagger about him. Unlike Pickett, unlike the next 2 guys on the list, but like Willis, he can make some really wowing off-platform throws, where he's running to his left and can throw 55 yards, going the opposite way. I think accuracy is pretty good overall, but it does suffer at bad times, Like, there's some really bad deep ball misses. There's some quick game misses that are just like, man, you can't miss these, Like, there was one, I can't remember who it was against, but there was a 4th and 1. And it's like, man, you can't have this quick game miss. You just can't have it. And they just seem to show up at the worst times, whether it's on the deep ball or in the quick game. He will curl hop and wind up into his deep throws and overthrow, and I think that might have something to do with it, the footwork. And on the short game throws, it's like he just short arms. Like, it's just trying to get the ball out so quick that he short arms it. So that's something that can obviously be worked. And I do think he has good footwork overall, especially for playing in that heavy RPO system.
Yeah, does not have a lot of experience throwing towards the sidelines, kind of like in that intermediate range, from that 5 to 15 yard range, throwing towards the sidelines. Does not have a lot of really any experience at all. And if you look at the spray chart, it charts below average targeted passes, above average targeted passes. 5th most screen yards in the country this year, which I think that's telling too. It's like, hey, if there's a quarterback that's really benefiting off of a scheme, that's less of what he's doing independently. And this is where it's really tough, because you have to kind of sift through that Ole Miss offense and the RPO heavy offense. And the NFL is becoming more RPO heavy, so I don't think it just doesn't translate at all, but it's obviously not.
The NFL has RPOs. This is just a flat-out RPO offense.
Yeah, so I look at Corral and I say that, okay, I can see him easily going to a quick-hitting system. If the Pittsburgh Steelers want to continue to be extremely quick-hitting after Ben Roethlisberger, then they can easily go, that route, even though there's rumors of them liking Malik Willis. I think Corral might be a better fit for them. Kind of get the, distributing, right? Corral's going to get the ball in the hands of the skill position players, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, the running back they have over there, Harris, and then they have Freiermuth, the tight end. Like, just distribute that ball, get the yards after the catch. That's what Corral did at Ole Miss. And also, if the Saints want to go back to the early days of Drew Brees, of kind of just shooting the ball around the yard a little bit too, of distributing the ball that way, that's also a possible good fit there too. So I feel like a lot of these evaluations on quarterbacks after Pickett and Willis is kind of similar, but some of the players have different traits of, they're all kind of average in some areas, but none of them will wow you with any kind of traits. And I feel like that's the theme from here on out.
Corral's the one of the 3 that does wow me. Like, he has some wowing throws. I think he has more wow moments than Kenny Pickett does. As far as the way he moves, I think he's got really good escapability, and he has good and bad hero ball moments. Like, he has that gamer in him. His just regular in the pocket manipulation needs a ton of work, and he panics at times. That being said, he does avoid sacks really well, which is a good trait to have. And like a lot of these guys, when he's running these traditional concepts, he just needs to pull the trigger on the 2nd and 3rd reads. Like, it's very one read, and the 2nd and 3rd, like, they just kind of don't have that confidence in those 2nd and 3rd ones. I would like to see the fumble stats. There was one game I watched where he fumbled a couple times, and there was just like bad ball handling. And I think he does have a little bit of an injury issue. Like, he left some games early.
He's a pretty thin player, yeah.
Yeah. But he moves really well. They use him in the rushing game. He's the guy, when you bring him to the NFL, I wouldn't use him as a runner a ton, but it's definitely a tool. And then obviously outside the pocket. I think out of, Like, I think he's got the highest ceiling outside of Malik Willis in this class.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Depends on what team he goes to. I think if he's on a team that's quick hitting, and then also if Sam Howell's on a team that emphasizes the vertical game, I feel like that's going to be the thing that kind of decides that.
You can clean up some of his deep accuracy issues with some footwork stuff. And he's got a hell of an arm too, so I just think that's why he is. And again, he's a lot more projecting again, because he just plays like he's going to need a good offensive line. Like if he plays behind a bad offensive line doing traditional reads, I think there's just going to be like these I think there's going to be a lot of disaster plays out of Matt Corral, because he plays aggressive, which I love. But there's just going to be a lot of disaster plays with Corral.
Yeah.
All right. Do you got anything else on Corral?
Nope.
All right. QB4. I know people are mad that I'm putting this guy above the next guy. Sam Howell, QB out of UNC. He's been like the most consistent out of all these guys the past 3 seasons. 6'1", 218 pounds, 9 1/8 inch hands. He's had good stats throughout, these last 3 years. Like, I noticed him as a freshman playing Miami. I was like, this guy looks like a pro quarterback, and his kind of stats actually kind of, like he had a decent freshman season, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 8.6 yards per attempt. And then in 2020, he played really well. Like, completed 68% of his passes, 10.3 yards per attempt, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. But he had De'Ami Brown. He had Daz Newsome. He had Javonte Williams and Michael Carter in the backfield. Like, a much better team around him. In this past season, he did struggle a little bit. But again, not a bad season. Completed 62.5% of his passes, 8.8 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He played in a vertical one-read offense that isn't NFL-based. Arm talent-wise, I think it's overall good, but not great arm talent. His deep ball has adequate velocity with good touch, but he does have some stinkers that just die out on you. So he doesn't have this great arm, but he's got a good one. Comfortable throwing outside the numbers with good velocity, and besides those deep touch throws, like he puts good zip on the ball on all other throws, and I think he works the short game well with good zip, timing, and accuracy. Arm strength wise, like he's got an NFL arm. Like I don't think there's any doubt about it. Doesn't have like a first round arm, but he's got an NFL arm.
Yeah, and I think one of the main issues with Howell is that he did have that, his really good freshman year, really good early on years, and then just never really improved from there.
Part of it is the offense he was asked to be in, but it's like, okay, but you see like some of the struggles he has. Let's talk about his accuracy. I do think it's good on all 3 levels. He can make some off-platform throws, but again, some disaster to it as well. He's a gamer. Like I want to talk about how he works in the offense. Like his footwork is mostly solid, but he floats in the pocket. Like he has a tendency to throw off his back foot when it's not needed at all.
He panics. He panics when that first read isn't there. If it's an RPO and that first read isn't there, if it's a go ball and that first read isn't there, he'll panic, and there's not a lot of those anticipatory throws in there either. So
yeah, that's a note I have. His offense doesn't ask him to go through progressions a ton, but he gets stuck and he has these panic runs. Like his pocket manipulation is horrible. Like in the pocket. Now he runs and scrambles a lot, and he's got a lot of gamer to him. Like he can run a decent amount. Like he can run through tackles. Like he's a good runner for someone who doesn't have probably the greatest athleticism. But again, he like has that gamer ability to him.
It's a fine line between. Do you want?
He's not going to do that in the NFL. That's not going to translate.
No,
the way he runs out of the pocket.
But it's a fine line with Howell with his game in college. It's a fine line between. All right, you're going to tuck the ball and run and get something out of nothing. A 4-yard gain, I guess, is better than an incompletion, or you're going to force the ball and get an interception. Or do you want to hold on to the ball? You have the arm velocity. Do you want to throw the ball into a tight window, or are you missing something that's wide open? I mean, I feel like all those things have happened to Howell.
And he has bad anticipation that leads to bad sacks. Like his sack rate is really high. In the red zone, it shows up the most. Like he has some really stupid red zone plays that lead to dumb sacks or just bad plays in general. Like he's just got too much like freestyle to his game without maybe the freestyle talent. And it's just, again, he's gonna be changed in the system, and that some of that stuff can help with coaching. So like he's not like some lost cause or anything. But there's too much bad without enough like great upside for Sam Howell for me to like feel comfortable taking him.
Yeah, but traits. I mean, I'm sure a team will like the arm, and they'll invest in that. Like, that's why I thought when you were starting to say something about Corral, I gave you a look because I was like, oh, I'm going to bet the guy in traits. And I thought you were going to put Howell third because of that. So,
yeah, I mean, he's just like, you know who he reminds me of? Taylor Heineke.
He's out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, I'd say that Taylor Heineke is the most like gamer out of all of them. Like that guy's a football player. You know, when you say that corny cliche phrase. He
reminds me of Heineke. Like, it's just like he'll be fine as a backup probably, but even then it's hard to adjust, and he just struggles with anticipation. Like, he's got to see a guy open, you know, even on the deep balls. It's like he doesn't anticipate those well. Like, you know, when he had De'Ami Brown, that's why he looked so good throwing the deep balls, because De'Ami Brown was able to get around and stack guys very well, and then have that speed to average those 20 yards per catch. And there's a lot of times where those balls would flutter a little bit, but De'Ami Brown did a good job boxing out and making some catches. And then you had Daz Newsome working from the slot, who I liked a lot. And then you have the running backs, Javonte and Michael Carter, who helped a lot. Those guys didn't make him, but they sure as hell helped him a lot. And this past year, with not a great surrounding cast and an offense that is very like, hey, it's awesome when you have those guys, not as awesome when you don't. Like, you just saw a lot of panicking to his game. Too much improvising, and again, like his manipulation of the pocket was just flat out horrible. Like, there really was no manipulation. It was either that first read was there or I'm panicking and running. All right, next.
Yep.
All right, last on the list, Desmond Ridder, QB out of Cincinnati, 6'3", 211 pounds, 10-inch hands. Had a very good combine. Ran a 4.5, 240, 36-inch vertical jump. This past season, completed 65% of his passes, 8.6 yards per attempt, 30 touchdowns and interceptions. His numbers before that were pretty bleh. 66% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The year before that, like, completed 55%, 18-9. Plays in a pro system with some pro reads. Here's the main thing, though. His overall arm talent to me is below average at the NFL standard. He can get the ball deep, but it has no zip on it. And it has a lot of underthrows, and I think he really struggles with both strength and accuracy outside of the numbers. He has good accuracy when he's throwing between the hashes, but the NFL is a sideline throw league on play in, play out. So he does good in those areas, but it's like, you got to be able to throw to the sideline outside the numbers, and he just really struggles. He doesn't have any strength or accuracy on those off-platform throws. So before we get into the other stuff, like, he just doesn't have an NFL, like, he has a below average NFL arm.
Yeah, not an investment on raw traits, but I think you can invest in the ball player, so to speak. You can invest in Desmond Ridder as a guy that has worked very hard year in and year out, that has improved, that is in a pro style system, and you're betting on Desmond Ridder being a very good hard worker and continuing to grow in the same way that he did with Cincinnati. That's what you're kind of betting on, and at least in the NFL, I don't know if that's the best thing to bet on with the most important position in all of sports.
Well, here's why I think he can be a really good backup, though. Maybe better than Sam Howell or Matt Corral. How about this? He's got really good footwork overall. Like, he needs to clean it up a little bit at the top of his drop, but, like, good footwork. He is a really good athlete, but he's not relying on it at all. I think he's got great poise within the pocket under pressure. Like, better than most of these guys ahead of him. Maybe all of them. Like, he's got really great like, he manipulates the pocket really well without scrambling. And you could argue Pickett, but Pickett likes to take off and run outside in the pocket more so than just manipulate. Like, Ridder does a good job of that, and he has good anticipation on the intermediate routes. Like, he really does. He's quick and decisive with the ball. Like, he's a good pre-snap processor. Maybe not the best post-snap, but at times with that pre-snap stuff, he does telegraph where he's going. And it's gonna lead to interceptions on out routes, curl routes, stick routes, which is stuff that you're gonna need for a guy who doesn't have the best arm to throw. And again, there's not a ton of evidence of him going through a bunch of progressions. But it's just, he misses too much, man. He's gonna throw bad, ugly interceptions. Watch the Notre Dame game, which was a big win for Cincinnati. Like, he just, on those outside the number of throws, like, miss. And it's just, that to me is too much. Like, you're not going to be a good NFL quarterback if you're missing guys like that. And then you don't have a great arm. You have good footwork. Like that's to me, that's a guy who's not an NFL quarterback.
And there's better athletes in the NFL. The windows are a lot tighter in the NFL, and he also has a little bit of a funky, elongated throwing motion where he makes the right read and he starts to throw the ball at the right time. But by the time the ball winds up getting out of his hands, maybe the ball arrives a little too late. And those are incompletions in college, but they may turn into interceptions at the pro level. So, like I said, not an investment on the traits, but you can invest in the kind of hard worker that he is and the kind of player that he is, and maybe you'll get something good.
All right. Do you want to start with the D-line, move on to the D-line, or do you want to read an ad to give people a little time to breathe?
I'm going to give a little people time to breathe since they're probably freaking out with no good reason about your quarterback rankings. I think I relatively agree with them. I honestly don't
Give me your 1 through 5 right now.
I was just about to say, I don't really care enough to really rank them that much, and I also don't feel that I worked so hard where I can give a good quarterback ranking. It's Malik Willis, and then I feel Kenny Pickett can be an average starter, and then I think the rest of the guys, I don't see them being average starters. That's the rankings. That's the tiers.
My rankings, to recap, are Willis, Pickett, Corral, Howell, Ridder.
So, if you're in love with any of these quarterbacks, when the moment for intimacy arrives and you want to make love to these quarterbacks, you need to be ready. You got to be Roman ready. That's right. Roman's back, baby. It's April 28th, and it's about maybe like 11:30, midnight. The Giants have Ikem Ekwonu or Neal, and they have Kayvon Thibodeau or Sauce Gardner, like two of those 4 football players, any of those combinations, and you maybe want to make love to your significant other. And if those draft picks don't get you, hornied up for it, Roman's got you, and you're going to get Roman ready. So I want you to get Roman.com/world now to speak to a U.S. licensed healthcare professional about erectile dysfunction and get $15 off your first month of treatments. The benefits of ED can help you reconnect with your partner and rediscover your love for the New York Football Giants when you make love to your partner draft night because you're so excited. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional, they're going to work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it's going to ship to you free with 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward, convenient, and discreet. Discreet part is my favorite. So I want you to go to GetRoman.com/world today, and if you're prescribed, get $15 off your first month of ED treatment. Make sure you're ready to have the confidence and control. Be Roman ready.
All right, let's talk about some defensive alignment. And Giants overall, they don't have a huge need here, but they could add some talent. They could add a 3 technique, 5 technique for Wink Martindale, and also maybe they don't want Justin Ellis to be their only nose tackle on the roster. So we're going to talk about a couple guys that fit those rules. Quick. What?
Devontae Wyatt or Jordan Davis? Who is your ideal one?
I haven't watched either one of them yet.
Whoa, Jordan Davis. It's like those are like round 1 guys, and I thought you had your round 1 guys done. I'd be interested to hear your takes on. How about this? We're gonna tease it. Draft stream, draft night. We're gonna be having a conversation on Jordan Davis and like his weight, his play style, positional value, and depending on where he goes. If he goes really high, then we'll have a conversation about if it's worth it. So we'll tease that. There you go.
All right, how about that? All right, let's start on the list. Start on the list on the guy I like the most out of this, and that's Logan Hall out of Houston.
Really?
Now, some people would call him an edge. I think he's a defensive lineman. I think he even said he's a 5 technique in the NFL, which is where I want him. He's 6'6", 283 pounds, 32 3/4 inch arms, ran a 4.88 40, 30-inch vertical. This past season at Houston, in 12 games, he had 47 tackles, 6 sacks, 13 tackles for a loss. He's a raw ball of talent and size, and I love it. He is a hand-in-the-dirt player, but he can line up all over. And he explodes out of his stance, and I think he's just a natural block shedder in multiple ways. And again, I think he's a ball of clay that we work with. He's got raw knockback power that leads to some nasty bull rushes. That being said, he does need to use his hands better, but when he does use his hands, they're deadly. He works counters, a little slow to get to them, but he works them. But that's a guy I can work with. Like, okay, he works his hands, he works spins. He's got this tight, compact swim that really embarrasses offensive linemen. Again, I think he needs to be more technical and less sloppy as a player. I think he needs to master the punch and drive, but it can be great if he doesn't, and his pad level will rise trying to work moves. Biggest weakness I'd say is he really does struggle versus double teams. Like he can get really worked versus double teams. So, but I have him as like a mid to late second round guy. So I don't know if I want to be taking that position for the Giants, but if he falls, like I like Logan Hall a lot, and I think he would fit Wink Martindale really well.
I am shocked that you like Logan Hall better than Travis Jones. Shocked.
Oh yeah, I definitely like him more.
Wow.
I mean, Logan Hall can do more for you. Travis Jones, at the end of the day, while he's really good at it, is a 3 technique at best who should play nose tackle.
That's valuable within itself, though, and that's the whole Jordan Davis conversation of positional value, and you talk about all the time about, hey, if you want to drop more guys in the coverage, which Wink Martindale doesn't do, but controlling the run and controlling the line of scrimmage on first and second down with those big guys up front is really, really important in today's NFL. So you can have the horses in the back, so you don't have to put another guy in the box, et cetera, et cetera. That's at least how Patrick Graham operated. Wink Martindale probably doesn't operate like that fully. But Logan Hall, yeah, I can see where you're definitely talking about where he fits Wink Martindale's system. He's 283 pounds. I mean, at least how much does he weigh? You probably have the right weight.
283 pounds.
All right, so 283 pounds is right. So he's 283 pounds, which I think is kind of light, and especially he's very, very long. I mean, being 6'6", he's extremely, extremely long, and I think that's why he kind of struggles in double teams, Bobby, because he's so long that he plays high. And I think even if he doesn't necessarily want to play high, he naturally does play high, because if you're not getting the leverage and you're also less than 290 pounds, you're not going to be winning with power necessarily. But he's explosive, and he can bull rush guys. So that's where I can see that potential of, hey, Wink Martindale, interior defensive lineman, you're going to hit this gap, you're going to attack this gap, and you're going to fill it, and that's where Logan Hall can be effective. So, but I am shocked, especially after we saw Travis Jones at the Senior Bowl. I am shocked you have Logan Hall ranked higher than him.
Yeah, I just think he's a natural block shedder who can get a lot better, where I think Travis Jones is who he is, and he plays the nose tackle spot where it's like, you know what, those one-on-ones look great at the Senior Bowl, but you're never getting a one-on-one position you're playing like that. That's never going to happen. And I think he has much more pass rush ability than Travis Jones. Obviously playing 2 different positions, we're talking about the same position group, but they do play 2 different positions.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Travis Jones then. Defensive tackle out of UConn. We love our UConn people on this podcast. 6'4", 325 pounds, 34.5-inch arms. He had 4.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for. I mean, he was a really good player at UConn. Long story short, he's a rare pass rushing nose tackle who can slide out the 3 technique, and he's a great block shedder using his strength and his hands. He's not going to rack up sacks, but he will get them, like kind of the way Dexter Lawrence is a player. Like he's not going to be, he's not going to have 8 sacks, but he'll get some sacks every single year. His athletic ability for his size is really, really good, and he uses his hands well. That's the main thing. He uses his hands well with clubs, pulls, swims, and disengages. I mean, his club is just nasty. He moves big men in the middle. And that was when he was playing against better competition. Like I watched him versus Clemson, and he handled their offensive linemen pretty consistently. Not great get off, and I think he plays with a little bit of high pad level, and his feet need to be more active, which I think is a theme for a lot of these defensive linemen. Their feet need to be more active. And for a player who plays nose tackle and is that freaking big, he needs to utilize the bull rush up more often. Add a little more power and not just all finesse. You're not going to be able to do that at the NFL level. Like that doesn't translate as well. Like get your hands under someone's shoulder pads and drive those feet, because that's what's going to give you more down in, down out success in the NFL. Not working that club and stuff. That stuff's good to have. But it's not going to get you by every rep in the NFL. And also, I mean, he gets moved on double teams and trap blocks, like down blocks. They'll wash his ass down the line of scrimmage. So, he's got some issues with that too. And I think that's, a part of him not moving his feet well.
You talked about his athleticism. One of the first notes that I have is that he has a relative athletic score of 9.64. Jordan Davis, I think, really stole the thunder away at the combine of getting I think a near perfect 10, because of how fast his 40 time is. But Travis Jones is a really, really good athlete. And I think one of my notes that I also have here that I have bolded, here's your nose tackle. I think Travis Jones is one of the more steady prospects in this draft class where you know what you're going to get. Like you're talking about, well, I want to see a bull rush more, and I don't know if Travis Jones is going to be asked if he's drafted by a team that's smart. I don't know if he's going to be asked to really rush the passer all that often. So, yeah, he needs to develop that bull rush more, but that's not necessarily what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. He's strong, strong, strong. He killed it at the Senior Bowl. That's at least where I recognized him, and I got to know him a little bit more. But here's your nose tackle, Bobby. And I think the fact that this guy could be taken in the second round, maybe 20, 25 picks after a guy like Jordan Davis, I think that's a lot better value versus Jordan Davis, who is probably going to be taken in the first round. So
yeah, I'm not even considered the Giants with Jordan Davis. I mean, I'd be shocked by that. Good player. I assume he's a good player. But yeah, I mean, I like Travis Jones. I view him as like a late second, early third type guy.
I think he could go early second. I think he could.
He definitely could, but it's just I don't know how well those pass rush moves or run moves that stuff translates to the run too. That stuff doesn't play as well in the NFL. Yeah. What plays as well in the NFL is getting your hands into someone's shoulder pads and bull rushing the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is good add-ons. Like that's where Dexter Lawrence has that stuff, but Dexter Lawrence can also get under your shoulder pads and he keeps his feet moving really well. Where I don't think Jones does that down in, down out. Next on this list, another guy we found at the Senior Bowl and fell in love with, and then I watched his film and I fell in more love. Ferrell Jr., nose tackle, defensive tackle out of LSU, 6'4", 330 pounds, 32 1/4 inch arms. Bad combine, 5'4", 140, 21.5 inch vertical jump. This past season in 12 games, he had 45 tackles, 2 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss. But he's been a serious player for them, even back to their, even in their national championship run in 2019. And even before that a little bit. He had 3 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss that year. He's a true nose tackle. And athletically, he holds up all right as someone who's going to play only nose tackle. Just great at the snap with pad level get off in hands. It's beautiful. He never, ever gives up ground. And when he's being double teamed, it's stalemates. He doesn't give up ground on double teams either. It's really beautiful to watch him fit versus the run and just ruin double teams. His plan of attack changes consistently, whether it's the punch, swiping, shooting, shooting into a gap, swimming. It's constant. He fires off low, and again, with consistently good hand strength. And again, he has the strength to control O-lineman with those good hands. I think he disengages very well. He's got a good feel for that, whether it's with his hands or his feet. If a player's getting real head heavy with him, he'll spin out of it. Do you want Ferrell Jr. spinning a ton? No, but if a player's getting real head heavy, he'll spin out of that and make him look silly. That being said, what might separate him from guys like Travis Jones and stuff is that he's just not going to get sacks in the NFL. He really lacks the athletic ability. He'll have really good pass rush moves and he'll win the whatever pass rush win rate or whatever. He'll have probably a good pass rush win rate or whatever. But he's not going to finish the play. He just can't move with a quarterback in the NFL. He can flow all right with the outside zone again, but he's a read. He's a get your hands in someone's shoulder pads, read and shed player, and those are the type of interior defensive lineman I like, especially when you're not talking about the top of the round. So I think his athletic ability is going to hold him back from people talking about, but I think he will look back. And Ferrell Jr. will be one of the most. I think he'll be playing as long as any defensive lineman in this class.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Neil. I feel like all these guys that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about John Ridgeway, we're going to talk about Phidarian Mathis, we're going to talk about we're on Ferrell Jr. right now. I think Travis Jones is really good value in the second round, and I think the rest of these guys are good value for wherever they're going to be picked throughout the draft, because I do think that these guys are, maybe late day 2, day 3 guys. And Ferrell Jr. definitely fits that category. I think he's a relentless player, something that you didn't say because I have a lot of what you had down. I think he's a very relentless player. I think he does do pretty well with down blocks where he kind of clamps down and he doesn't get washed out. You had that as a critique of Travis Jones. And something that I also have is I think he has some bad weight on him. I try not to get too scouty and too judgy and nitpicky about that kind of stuff, but I do think he has some bad weight on him where he can add some strength, where if he gets that bad weight off and he replaces that with some muscle, maybe he can get a little bit stronger. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you look at all the guys we talk about on this defensive line group, he's the fattest.
Yeah.
Where Travis Jones is he's big, but you can tell it's a little lean. John Ridgeway is seems like a ball of muscle. Phidarian Mathis is a little thin, and then Logan Hall doesn't really fit into the same group as those guys. But obviously, like you mentioned, he's definitely got some belly to him.
Love it player, by the way. Haven't said that about any player so far. He's a
Oh
love it
wow,
player for
okay.
me.
How about that? I love Neil Ferrell Jr. too. I've taken him in the draft month mock draft and the post Senior Bowl mock draft. I think some team that values the Senior Bowl is going to take him like on the third round.
Yeah,
I really do.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Next on this list, Arkansas defensive tackle, nose tackle John Ridgeway, 6'5", 321 pounds, 33 3/8 in his arms. Not a great athlete either, 5'3", 40, 4.73 shuttle. He transferred from Illinois State and then had 2 sacks and 4 tackles for a loss for Arkansas in 11 games. He's a project player, but you see some stuff there. I mean, he's a nose tackle with just a big, imposing frame, and he can slide out to like 3 technique for run reps. Solid get off for a nose tackle. The thing that really stands out the most to him, because he has a lot to work on, but he has a really good first punch with good placement, like just jacks up centers, like just gets under, he raises a center shoulder, pad level really well. But after that, it falls off a cliff with Ridgeway. And with that, he has strong hands, but I think he's more top heavy. He needs to keep his feet working through contact and rolls hips. He looks to disengage laterally, but he just ends up wrestling with the guy. He just doesn't have those moves. Like, he needs a ton of technical work. Like, his hand usage, his counters aren't there. And with his feet not moving, he gets washed up, not as more so than Travis Jones, but he gets washed up against angle combo blocks really badly. Single blocks, it doesn't happen, but against combo blocks, he gets worked really bad, and I just think he lacks some lower body strength, or just doesn't know how to use that lower body strength. Doesn't have the overall athleticism to add any pass rush value. His lateral ability, I think it's not bad, but it just isn't there, and he was taken off the field for passing reps, but again, he is a nose tackle. But he brings the energy every single rep. You mentioned that with Neil Ferrell. Like, he brings the nose energy every rep. So I think with Ridgeway, I think he definitely, to me, is a day 3 guy, but he's a day 3 guy where it's like, all right, we watch the first second of each snap. Let's work on the next 2 seconds for John Ridgeway.
He's a college nose tackle, which that's rare. That's rare out of a lot of these interior defensive linemen that we're talking about. Maybe sometimes they're playing multiple roles. You're gonna draft John Ridgeway to be a nose tackle. He already is a college nose tackle. You mentioned how he wrestles guys. Well, Bobby, that's because he's a state champion wrestler, and he plays like that in the trenches, where he has that punch, he has that pop, and I do feel like this is a Senior Bowl bias, because it was Robert Schmitz and we were watching him, and like, this dude's just an anchor in the middle. Where I think you're undervaluing his strength. I do think that he is a really, really strong player, and the way that he plays,
I think his upper body strength is great.
Yeah, I feel like it almost like you're watching him wrestling, like you're watching a high school match in wrestling, and that's who John Ridgeway really is. I like his reaction time and ability to jump on a ball carrier. Where sometimes, you'll see nose tackles be like, I'm just going to fill a gap and I'm not fast enough. I'm not able to, jump on a ball carrier and make a play. When John Ridgeway makes a play and he makes a tackle for loss, he'll have that little bit of lateral movement to kind of get on that ball carrier, which I do think is valuable. Not just relying on everybody else to come up and make the play and fill that gap. Hey, make the play when you have an opportunity to. So, for a guy that could be taken in the 4th, 5th round and day 3, I think John Ridgeway is a really strong player. He's raw, he's kind of wild, when he plays like he's wrestling. But if you can kind of if good coaching can get his hands on him and do something, I think John Ridgeway can be a pretty solid player in the NFL.
Yeah, he's definitely someone that needs a lot of coaching, but it's like, okay, you see it there with him. All right, the last player on the list, Justin, I want you to introduce him.
Wow. So, Phidarian Mathis from the University of Alabama. He is 6'4", 310 pounds. I'm surprised that Bobby put him last. Did you put him last because you wanted me to introduce him, or did you put him last because you view him as last?
I didn't put him last because I view him as last. I put him last because I did the least amount of work on him versus
That's
the other
fair.
players.
That's fair, because I
and
do think...
Is it Phidarian or Phidarian? Well, I'm pretty sure you pronounced that wrong.
I think it's Phidarian. I mostly try and copy and paste.
Where's the J coming from?
Phidarian. There's 2 D's. Phidarian. Am I saying it as a J? Phidarian?
It's Phidari. It's Darian with a phi in front of it. Phidarian.
Well, then I'm adding an extra D for no reason. Also, you know what I'm going to blame? I'm going to blame it on my Jersey accent, and I need Ron Swanson, my speech therapist, to help me out. Remember last show where I asked you, is it Thibodeau or Thibodeau? And you said Thibodeau, and I continued to pronounce it wrong for the rest of the show. That was fun. Help me out.
Phidarian
Mathis does a great
fedora.
job.
He wears a fedora. Phidarian wears a fedora.
Does a great job of separating and getting
Torch.
extension at the point of attack. He has a 91st percentile for arm length. Utilizes that extension to keep his head on a swivel for the ball carrier. Another guy that can come in and be your nose tackle, interior run stuffing defender from day one. However, he's not just a nose tackle at the University of Alabama. Alabama kind of asked him to do a lot of things. And I find that Phidarian Mathis is another one of these players, again, like Travis Jones, like Ferrell Jr., another one of these guys that if you draft them, you're getting a good football player.
He moves well.
And you're getting him for good value. What did you say?
I said he moves well.
He does move really well. Found a way to sneak out 7 sacks in the SEC, and he can definitely push the pocket. I'm calling him the Travis Jones of the middle rounds. Reliable, steady, and you know exactly what you're getting. Overall, he's a love it player for me. There's a reason why he's not considered one of the top guys, maybe possibly due to athleticism, but solid value in the draft where there's not a ton of good defensive tackles, nose tackles in this draft class, and Phidarian Mathis is definitely one of those guys.
Well, you mentioned the long arms, and I think a lot of times it's just like, oh, he's got long arms, and people just say, oh, he's got long arms. He uses his long arms. Like, he gets into a guy's chest and then extends those arms, and he just keeps offensive linemen out of his chest, which allows him to disengage really well. And again, when we're talking about defensive tackle, nose tackle, when we say move well and athletic ability, it's relevant to the position. But I think you can run stunts with him better than all these other guys, and besides maybe Travis Jones. People want to call him Travis Scott. So I think he's got good ability to move, and you need to see that in the sack numbers. Like, he has the best stats, I think, out of this group. Like, like you said, 7 sacks, I think 8 or 9 tackles for a loss. So he had the best numbers out of all this group. He is a little light, though. I think he's 308 pounds?
310, yeah.
Yeah, so for someone who's going to be playing clearly inside, he's a little light.
The good thing about him being kind of pseudo light, though, is he's on the field. He was on the field for 547 snaps this year, which, again, Jordan Davis conversation. If you're going to take a guy in the first round and he's not going to be on the field a lot, then is it really worth it? And, I don't know if Travis Jones has that same argument. Ferrell Jr. definitely has that argument of, can he be on the field a lot? Is he even going to be on the field? I mean, Phidarian Mathis, Alabama's not a team where they're lacking in depth. I mean, it's the opposite. But he was on the field for 547 snaps, and where he's playing a position where a lot of guys go off of the football field.
All right, that's our QB and defensive line preview. Was a lot of fun. I like talking about the QBs. QBs is fun. Maybe next year it'll be a lot more fun, and maybe a lot more stressful too, because it'll be like, all right, now I'm staking my reputation on some of these takes. But it is what it is. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday with our inside linebacker preview, which is a very fun position in this draft. A lot of guys, a lot of different flavors for you in that one. So we're starting to heat up, baby. Starting to heat up. We're getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you on Friday. Until then, let's go Big Blue.